Bienvenidos sean todos los participantes a este evento. Reciban un cordial saludo de parte del Departamento de Evaluación Académica y Certificación del Ministerio de Educación Pública. Les saluda y les da la más cordial bienvenida al seminario web Modelo orientado a la conceptualización del lenguaje, la importancia del significado en el aprendizaje y uso del lenguaje. Esta actividad está dirigida a personas asesoras regionales de inglés, así como a docentes de inglés. Este seminario web tiene como objetivo el siguiente: socializar el modelo orientado a la conceptualización del lenguaje, Meaning-Oriented Conceptualization of Language Knowledge, como fundamento teórico de la prueba nacional estandarizada de lenguas, específicamente de inglés, con el fin de fortalecer la comprensión, enriquecer la práctica docente en secundaria y promover la coherencia entre el currículo, la evaluación y la enseñanza de este idioma. Les habla Rudy Macís Siles, asesor de inglés, quien los acompañará como moderador durante este evento. A todas las personas participantes les solicitamos favor llenar el registro de asistencia que podrán encontrar en el chat a partir de este momento. El evento iniciará con la presentación principal que abordará el modelo orientado a la conceptualización del lenguaje, la importancia del significado en el aprendizaje y el uso del lenguaje. De esta manera, iniciamos la presentación con una breve conceptualización sobre el modelo, la cual les voy a comentar brevemente. Next. So, again, good afternoon to everybody. At this point, many of you could be wondering about what the MOCLK is. At its core, it is a model that organizes language knowledge into different layers of meaning. These layers help us understand how learners make sense of language, not just in terms of words and grammar, but also in the ideas, that is, the nuances, and even the cultural and psychological aspects that shape communication. In other words, MOCLK gives us a way to connect what we need, what we teach, what students learn, and how we evaluate learning. It is the theoretical backbone of the National Standardized Foreign Language Test, in this case, English. But more importantly, it is a guide for enriching everyday teaching. Next. As we can see in this scheme, we can have the illustration of how the different components of this analysis come together in order to produce and make the person, either listener or reader, understand the concepts and the different ideas, thoughts, emotions, feelings, and information in general into the different stimuli that the person could be exposed to. That is either a reading passage or a spoken message. Next. The following section will be presented by my colleague, Dennis Castro Mora. He is also an advisor at the Dirección de Gestión, and he will enlighten us with a much deeper understanding and illustration and contextualization of what the MOLCK is for our purposes. Dennis, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, Rudy, thank you so much. Guys, welcome. Probably some of you are saying right now, I mean, what are they talking about? Okay, do not worry about this. I mean, we're going to start from the beginning, okay? Next, please, is the Inés. Okay, for those who are taking notes right now, okay, or I mean, write down this word down, or at least keep this word in mind. I mean, from the very beginning until the end of the presentation, well, today's presentation, meaning is going to play an important role in today's presentation. We will talking and we will discuss. We will be discussing about the importance of meaning in learning a second language. Guys, something that we know already is that right now we're working between experts in language teaching, and you will see, actually, we will see how important it is to understand actually how meaning works in learning a second language. Next, please. Guys, as I said before, so we are between, I mean, we're working with experts in language teaching. And actually, we know that learning a second language is not just about grammar or vocabulary, right? It's about using language to express, I mean, a lot of different ideas and in many different ways. So, for example, in real life situation, we just, I mean, our language is going to depend on the context. It could be the person we're talking to, why, I mean, what are we trying to communicate, okay? The place where the conversation is taking place. We also need to consider the register, right? The tone that we're using. If it is formal, informally, we're talking to our boss or we're talking between friends. You know, there are many different aspects that we know already as English teachers know we need to consider when teaching a language. So that's why when we use our L2, I mean, we use it to express a wide range of meanings, okay, within different contexts, okay? So why did I write down that asterisk in the word meanings? Because the center, the core of today's presentation is going to be the word meaning in how it works, okay, in the process of learning English in this case, okay? Next, please. But I mean, how do we define meaning and how it works during this presentation, along this presentation? Well, this is the linguistic definition of meaning, okay? We're gonna use Purpura as a reference. Well, Bates, cited by Purpura, and I'm gonna read it exactly the way it is, okay? From a linguistic perspective, it says, meaning is defined as a set of mental operations carried out by the speaker, which the speaker intends to create in the mind of the listener by using a given sentence, okay? What we are trying to communicate in a sentence, or what is behind that sentence, is a meaning, okay? Remember this, meaning, okay? So, well, meaning, I mean, communication, it's not only the literal words or the sentence we use. It is actually, it is well, what he says, what he calls a cognitive process, a serial of mental operations, okay, performed by the speaker. Okay, I choose, remember, we as listeners, we choose a particular sentence with a goal, with an intention, okay? And remember that it could be a very simple sentence in this case, a very simple idea. But that idea actually is going to change depending on, remember the aspects or the aspects we consider. I talked to you before. I don't know, the people we're talking to, the goal, and so on. Okay. For example, I'm going to give you an example. Ines, please, next. We have these simple ideas or sentences. Okay. What we're going to start calling from now on meanings. Okay. Remember that a sentence, when I mean, I'm trying to convey a meaning, it means that I'm saying a sentence. I want or I need to convey something in this sentence, okay? For example, we have this very simple statement, sorry, this simple sentence. The meeting starts at 9, sorry. Probably what I'm trying to say, well, remember that this is going to depend on the context. It is going to depend on the intention. It is going to depend on what I want to say. So probably I just want to say, well, the meeting starts at 9. What I want to say is the time. Okay, it's 9. Perfect. But maybe depending on the context, it means it's early. I'm not in a hurry. The meeting starts at 9, so I still have time to go for a coffee. For example, or maybe it could mean the opposite. So the meeting starts at 9. It's late. Hurry up. Or maybe it can actually function as a reminder. Laura, the meeting starts at 9, right? So what are you doing? So be ready. For example, you see, a simple sentence can actually, I can actually use it to convey different meanings, okay? Remember, and let's keep that word in mind, the word meaning, and the important role it plays in learning a second language, okay? Very good. I'm gonna give you another example, and I really want to listen to you, participating. The next one, Ines, please. We have this very simple conversation, okay? We have two speakers, 2 friends, 2 students, 2 classmates. I'm gonna read it. It says, are you ready for today's exam? I didn't study enough, and science is not my favorite subject. I see, and I need to get a good grade. Don't worry, do your best. It's not the end of the world. Believe it or not, guys, in this conversation, you can express or you can convey a lot of different meanings. For example, the speakers are trying to convey what? Guys, I really want to listen to you. We're going to take 5 minutes for a short discussion. I'm going to start. Okay, I'm going to start. For example, well, in this conversation, I want to say, well, the exam is today. It's a meaning I want to express. I want to convey that today is the exam. It was not yesterday. It's not going to be tomorrow. No, it is today. What else can we convey, guys? Raise your hands. We're waiting. There's one. Okay. a volunteer. What else can we, you know, express through this conversation? What do we want to convey? Heiner Matarrita, Heiner, thank you so much. Inés, help me with Heiner. Inés, no, the previous one, sorry, the one we were working with. The one with the conversation, yeah, that one. It's because Heiner wants to participate. Jose Calderon as well. Okay. Thank you, Octavio. Inés. Inés, ¿usted nos podría ayudar para que Heiner participe? Okay. Okay, well.
Él ya puede encender cámara y micrófono. Todo
Okay,
depende de él.
Okay, Heiner.
Hello. Can
Go
you hear
ahead,
me?
Heiner. Of course we can, yeah. So go ahead, Heiner. So the stage is all yours. The stage is all yours.
Thanks. What I can convey from the
from this
information, right? Yes.
Yeah. Remember that I have already given you an example, right? I just want to say that today's the exam. It was not yesterday. It's not going to be tomorrow. No, the exam is today. What else?
Okay. It's going to be a stressful day for students. It's going to be a different day for the students.
What makes you think that in the conversation?
Because not all of the days students have exams.
But what expression or what idea in the conversation makes us think that it's going to be a stressful day for them? For example,
because the students are not well prepared, maybe.
Maybe they are not well prepared, right? In the expression when he says, I didn't study enough.
Exactly.
Good. Thank you, Heiner. The next one, who's the next one?
So welcome.
Okay. I am being supportive, right, Randall? When I tell you, don't worry, my friend. Don't worry, that's okay.
Dennis and the audience, as a gentle reminder, you can raise your hand in the app for Teams, and then Inés will give you direct access to activate your microphone and your camera if you feel comfortable with your camera. But please remember, you can participate by clicking on the hand icon. So you can raise your hand, and then they will give you the floor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ruth. There's just one more person, please, because I cannot see who's gathered their hand raised. ¿Quién tiene la manito levantada? Angélica. Angélica, do you want to say something? Do you want to participate? Andrea Lobo, I guess.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Yes.
Andrea, you know we cannot hear you. Well, I can't. I don't know about the rest.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can. Well, I can, yeah.
Okay,
go ahead,
good afternoon.
Andrea. The stage is all yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to say that they are trying to convey the anxiety and the lack of preparedness for a science exam. And also the other offers like encouragement and also the perspective about don't worry, kind of that. Thank
so
you.
it's not the end of the world, right, Andrea? So don't worry. The world is not about to collapse. So this is not what I mean, right? Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. Okay, Inés, the next one, please. But guys, the basic of this, or I mean, when learning a second language, okay, the basic thing that we really need to know is the knowledge of grammatical forms, okay? What do we understand by semantic or grammatical knowledge? Remember that, I mean, when learning this is what I said before. I mean, when learning a second language, we not only learn grammar and words, but grammar is the base. Without grammar, we are not, I mean, we won't be able to say anything. And sometimes we really know how to say something, right? How to use grammar properly. But the thing is that we really need to know how and when to use it, okay? In a correct context, okay? I always give this example, okay? Sorry, guys, when I talk about knowledge of grammatical forms, it means that I really know how to master the grammar of the language. For example, we're talking about simple past. What do we really need to know about simple past? That we have regular, irregular verbs. There's I forgot the word. It's an auxiliary, right? That we use did. We do not use do, does, will. No, this is the auxiliary we use for simple past. I mean, we really need to master all those rules. This is what we really need to know first. Okay, the knowledge of grammatical forms. I always give this example that probably I don't really know if it is right to use it right here, but I remember once when I was teaching, I asked one of my students, and I asked him, I'm gonna use a different name. Well, Dennis. Dennis, where do you live? And actually his answer was like this: my living is in Heredia, Punta Arenas, I don't know. I mean, for example, he didn't have that knowledge. He didn't know that there are certain rules that we need to use in the language, right? Okay. Once we master those rules, we really need to use it, okay, in a specific context, okay, in order to express or to convey propositional knowledge, or in order to convey propositional meaning. This is the first meaning we're going to start discussing. Propositional meaning. Okay. Inesita, please, next. We have this very simple conversation. I'm going to give you some minutes for you to read it. Actually, guys, this is an A1 conversation. You will see it. Hi, Emma. We're planning something for Jake this weekend on Saturday. For example, in this conversation, guys, the speaker is combining forms and meanings. Okay, I'm using grammar to convey propositional meaning or propositional knowledge. Okay, so this is the first meaning. Okay, propositional meaning. For example, we have these examples. When are the guys meeting? On Saturday. Who's the celebration for? Who's the birthday boy? Jay. What is Emma bringing for the party? I'm asking you for details. Okay, remember this. I'm asking you for details. Okay, this is propositional meaning. I'm using grammar. I'm using it in a specific context to get details, to convey propositions. Propositional meaning. Okay, good, guys. Here we go. Inesita, next, please. Guys, when we're talking about propositional meaning, okay, which is this is just like the basic one, right? So the information is explicitly stated in the text or in the audio. When when I say propositional meaning, it means that the speaker is reading the lines or listening to the lines. When is your birthday? It's in October. On October 2nd. Proposition, right? A detail, it's just a detail. I read exactly, or I listen to what you're saying, exactly to what you're saying, okay? The information is there. There's an endophoric reference. I don't have to imagine anything. No, you're being very direct, okay? Ines, the next one, please. Okay, so what does a propositional meaning item look like? Okay, Ines, the next one, please. Guys, something which is really important, and I want you to keep this in mind, and I said this before. The next one. Okay, if you're taking notes, take this down, write this down, sorry, or keep this in mind. Guys, in the National English Test, we always align one of the descriptors of the Common European Framework with one of those meanings. Do you remember the first meaning I already talked to you about? The propositional meaning, which is the one that I use to convey details, the one that I try to convey explicit information. We align that meaning with one descriptor. For example, this one. This is a B1 descriptor. Can identify literal meaning of propositions as well as other implied meanings in the speaker's mood, tone, emotes, radio, the commentaries, and so on and so on and so on. Okay, so let's see this example. Okay, Ines, please. Let's read this example. Okay, this is a listening task. This is actually a B1 level listening task, okay? We have the instruction, and we have the situation. The situation says a podcast host talks about the life of J.K. Rowling, okay? But before we answer this information, okay, before we answer this question, we're gonna listen to this audio. But I just want you to focus on the audio. Just pay attention to the audio. Do not read the question yet, okay? Do not read the answers. Well, the possible answers, okay? Inesita, please play the audio. We're gonna listen to this as a post. Actually, it's a podcast. Inesita, ayúdeme con el audio, por favor.
¿Cuál letra era?
B1.
She was broke, divorced, and depressed, writing in cafes with her baby asleep beside her. 12 publishers rejected her, but she never gave up. This is the incredible true story of J.K. Rowling, the woman who turned rock bottom into magic. Joanne Rowling, better known as J.K. Rowling, was born in England in 1965. From a young age, she loved telling stories, but her life was far from a fairy tale. In her 20s, she lost her mother, suffered through an abusive marriage, and became a single mother. She was jobless, battling depression, and even considered ending her life. She was so poor, she couldn't afford to photocopy her manuscript, so she typed every single copy by hand to send to publishers. And guess what? 12 publishers said no. One even told her children don't want to read long books. But finally, one small publisher, Bloomsbury, took a chance. They gave her a tiny advance and printed just 500 copies of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. That was the spark. Soon, the world fell in love with the boy wizard. The books broke every record. The films became a billion-dollar franchise. And Rowling became the first author to become a billionaire. J.K. Rowling once said, "Rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life." Her story is a reminder. Even when everything seems lost, your story isn't over. Keep writing it.
So keep writing it. Okay, so you see, guys, what characteristics, what can we get from this audio? I mean, considering the item. Well, sorry, let's answer the item. Let's answer the question first. It says, what happened after her first Harry Potter book was published? What happened? What's the answer? A, B, C. B, right? Guys, in this audio, actually, the proposition is explicitly stated in the audio, right? The answer was explicitly said in the audio. We didn't have to go beyond. This is actually what she said in the presentation. The listener just needs to get a detail from the audio. I don't want to convey anything else, just a detail. I just need you to give you a detail. In this case, it was an event. What had happened after her book was published. The person reads the lines. Just keep this in mind. I don't really need to go beyond. I just read the lines. Well, in this case, I just listen to what she's saying. Exactly to what she's saying. And it is a fact. Okay? Ines, the next one, please. Just remember, when we're talking about propositional meaning and when we're writing down propositional meaning or propositional knowledge, task, items, we will center on topical content. What the text explicitly says, literal meaning. Answers are directly stated in the text or in the audio. In this example, guys, or when we're talking about propositional meaning, we are not going beyond. We are not trying to convey any inference. Everything must be literal. Actually, we commonly answer to questions like who, where, when, how long, what happened, things like this. Okay, so when we write down items, propositional meaning items, we have to consider this. Just remember this. So the information must be explicitly stated in the text or in the audio. But guys, that must, that also depend on the level, right? If it is A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, because actually we convey propositional meaning at any level. It does not mean that just with A1 levels, we are gonna try to convey propositional meaning. No, we do it at any level, okay? Next, Inesita, please, okay? Once we're able to use propositional knowledge, propositional meaning to convey, remember, details, facts, information, we can use that propositional meaning, that sentence, okay? And we can give it a function. That's what we call functional knowledge. What we call, in a metaphorical way, the compass of language. Okay? Ines, the next one, please. As Purpur explained, language is not, and this is something we discussed before. Language is not only about content, it also conveys functional meanings. Guys, I don't really know, but we are actually, well, we are used to teaching just grammar and vocabulary. And we make our students just repeat sentences or those famous role play conversation our students always repeat. So learning a second language that goes beyond that. I can use that propositional meaning because actually what I was talking to you was about propositional meaning. I can give them a function. I use actually the language for a specific purpose. And we'll see this later. Inesita, please. Ines. So in some way, functional knowledge gives us direction, right? It tells us what the speaker intends, okay? Remember that with propositional meaning, I'm giving you details. With functional meaning, I'm going farther. I'm giving you an intention, more than just giving you details. Ines, please, the next one. The other one, sorry, the other ones. Yeah, please. Not that one, the next one, please. Inesita la próxima, por favor. Okay, what do we understand by functional meaning, guys? Okay, remember, I'm giving the language a specific function. Right now, I'm having a goal. I'm using that propositional meaning. Remember that simple sentence? Remember the one that I gave you before. The meeting starts at 9, at 10, I don't remember. Now I'm giving, I'm not just trying to give you the time, no. Actually, I'm trying to say something else behind that sentence. The next one, Ines, please. What do we understand by functional meaning? Okay, guys, right now I have the knowledge of grammatical forms and meanings. Okay, you know, for example, I already know how to use simple past, and I'm talking to you in past. I'm talking to you about my last trip to, I don't know, to Alajuela, for example. I'm using the grammar correctly. Okay, I'm using it, right, to convey propositional knowledge or propositional meaning. For example, I'm using simple past to tell you that I went to Alajuela yesterday and that I went with my family. So you see, that's propositional meaning. I went to Alajuela, a place, with my family. People, okay? But I can use also that propositional knowledge to give it a function. So what we call functional knowledge or functional meaning. So I'm using the language to say that, well, yesterday I went to Punta Arenas, to Alajuela, and I had a very good time. Oh, yes, I went with my family. We went to the mall, or we went to the volcano. We do this, we do that, right? So I'm giving the language a function. In this case, I'm telling you something that I loved doing, okay? The next one, Ines, por favor, please. The speaker has the ability to use propositions, one sentence, remember, one idea, to express intentionality. Actually, we use, and this is something we use it every day, guys, in Spanish. And this is something we should start doing teaching this in our classes, So we use our language where, well, we use the language to suggest, to give advice, to describe events, to give details, to ask for information, to persuade. So we use the language, for doing many things, okay? To convey many different meanings. In this case, functional meaning. The next one, please, Ines. We do, Randall, very good. Pay attention to that comment Randall have just written down, okay? For example, we have the same conversation, the one that we used before. Remember that in this conversation, the first exercise was asking you for details. My purpose was to, or my goal was just to ask for details, propositional meaning. So we have the same conversation. But right now, I don't want you to ask for details. I really want to ask you about the function of the language. Why am I writing this conversation to you? What is the conversation about? Saul wants to invite Emma to a celebration. It's an invitation. That's the purpose of this WhatsApp conversation. What did Saul write to Emma? He wrote to invite her to an invitation. What is the purpose or the intention of the message? So in this case, guys, the speaker is combining semantico-grammatical knowledge, okay, positional knowledge to express an intention, something which is not literal, okay? Well, in some cases, some intentions might be literal, right? So, okay, very good. The next one. Guys, when we're talking about functional meaning, okay, the information is implied in the text, okay? The meanings are implied by the context, okay? The speaker gets the gist from the passage. In this case, well, from the audio, okay? The speaker even said, so we're going to a farther level. Lines. The information is not there. I have to read between, okay? Very good. The other one, Ines, please. Okay, what does a functional meaning item look like? Let's go ahead. La otra, Inesita, por favor. Okay, guys, remember, in the National English Test, okay, the one you're familiar with, so we always match, we always align a descriptor from the Common European framework of reference with one of these meanings. Okay, remember the one we discussed before, propositional meaning? This one is functional meaning, okay? And let's read this descriptor. It says follow literal propositions and implied meanings, okay? Something implied. That's functional meaning, okay? In the general outline of a demonstration or presentation. Ines, the next one, please. Okay. We have another listening task, okay? Right now we're gonna listen to the conversation. And this is a conversation. It's a situation. Two friends talk about weekend plans. Let's pay attention to the question. In this example, I'm not asking you for details, right? I'm asking you for something farther, right? What did Jason call Charlie? There's an intention in this conversation, okay? Here we go. Ines, please play the conversation. Inés, pónganos la conversación, por favor.
Hey, Charlie. How's it going?
Hey, Charlie.
Hi, I'm doing well, Jason. Thanks. How about you?
I'm good too. So, I was thinking of going to a soccer game this weekend. Would you like to join me?
Oh, that sounds fun. What time is the game?
It's on Saturday at 3 p.m. I was thinking we could meet around 2:30 p.m. and maybe grab a snack or a drink before the game starts.
Sounds perfect. Where's the game?
It's at the local stadium, just a 10-minute drive from your house. Not far at all.
Awesome. How much do the tickets cost?
They're $15 each. Not bad at all for a football game, right?
Yeah, that's a great deal. I'll bring the money. Do you need me to bring anything else?
No, just yourself. It'll be a good time. We can even grab a bite after the game if you're up for it.
I'm definitely in. I'm really looking forward to it. See you on Saturday at 2:30.
Perfect. It's going to be a lot of fun. See you then.
Okay, guys, in this conversation, thank you, Maria. Nuria Maria, thank you for your answer. She already answered the question. Okay, so guys, in this conversation, the proposition is implied in the audio, right? One, because Jason is not telling Charlie, do you want to do no. We have to read, between that conversation and to get the answer, okay? The listener needs to get the gist from the audio. The person listens between the lines, as I said before. Why did Jason call Charlie? To ask him to play soccer, right? That's the right answer. No, right? It was B. So he used, actually, in this case, Jason used propositional knowledge to convey a functional meaning, right? In this case, he used the conversation, or he used the language to invite Charlie to a soccer match, I guess. Yeah, soccer game, soccer match. To play soccer is a distractor. It is a distractor, indeed. Very good. So, guys, when we're talking about functional meaning items, we need to consider this. Yes, please. The next one. Okay. Remember, the communicative purpose, what the speaker or the writers intend to do. Okay. The message goes beyond literal. Okay. And in this case, actually, the context matters. It really matters. Common question stems. What is the purpose of this? What is the speaker trying to do with this? Why did the author say this? So you see, I'm not asking you about details. I'm going beyond, right? I'm asking you about an intention. I'm asking you for the intention of something, okay? Just remember the steps to write tasks like this. I mean, functional meaning items. Select a short text or audio. Identify functional language. Okay. Write interpretive questions, and avoid, guys. So this is really important. Let's avoid literal recalls. Remember that when we're talking about functional meaning, we forget about details. So just to wrap up this, remember that we use details. We every day we use details. We ask for details, for information. But actually, we can use that information to go beyond and to try to convey different functions. Remember, persuade, I'm using the language to persuade. I'm using the language to invite. I'm using the language to do different functions. Okay? Rudy?
Thank you, Dennis, for your explanation on the proposition and functional meanings, and also the knowledge that is attached to all of these two concepts. As a gentle reminder, please remember to complete the attendance form, and you can find the link in the chat of this same meeting. So please do so at your earliest convenience. So that will be of help for IDP and also for the presenters as well. Following with this presentation, now we're going to have the words of Ms. Laura Campos Barqueros. She is also an advisor at Dirección, Gestión y Evaluación de la Calidad. So, Laura, you can begin your presentation. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Rudy. Welcome, everyone. As we have just seen this presentation from Dennis, we have seen how this model has its pillars on the grammar, then on the intention of the speakers, and how we build that meaning so that we can understand the messages conveyed. In my case, I'm going to talk about the meanings beyond words, the layers of meanings. In this case, I'm going to use this metaphor that is an iceberg. Maybe next, please. So language is never just about words. Like an iceberg, what we see on the surface is only a fraction of what is really there. Like what Dennis just explained, right? All the grammar and vocabulary, that's the surface, okay? But all the mental processes that we conduct while we are speaking and while we are processing messages, that's what is underneath. And in my presentation, we are going to explore the deeper layers of meaning that operate beneath the surface of the communication. Next, please. As you can see in that video, that's, I mean, amazing, right? That video, you can see that the iceberg represents the MOCKL framework. Above the water, we find the visible, literal meanings. But below, we can encounter the hidden from plain sight. The light, the richer implied meanings, they shape how communication truly works. As you can see there, you can see that what it's under the water is larger than what you see on the surface, right? And those are the mental processes, the grammar, the vocabulary, and everything that we need to learn so that we can master another language. Okay, next, please. Our role as educators is to help students to dive deeper and discover those meanings. I'm quoting here Púrpura. He was the one who operationalized this model, and he stated that implied meanings is about what is not directly stated. It is a shared knowledge, assumptions, and context between speakers and listeners. As Purpura explains, communication always goes beyond words to include these unstated layers. Next, please. Okay, Dennis just explained the previous foundation of this model, okay, and he explained the meanings, right, that we can convey. And I'm gonna detail the information about the implied meanings. And we call it this reading beyond the lines, okay? So as you can see here in my metaphor about the ocean and the iceberg, okay? Here you see the coral reefs and a diver exploring the underwater world. This is a metaphor for language. When students only focus on surface words, they miss the vibrant richness underneath. By training them to dive deeper, they can explore meaning in all its dimensions. Next, please. As you can see, we have 6 layers of implied meanings, okay? And I'm going to show you, okay, the first 3. Okay, we have the social-linguistic, social-cultural, psychological. Next, please. That brings us a closer understanding on how language works beyond the literal. And also we have the rhetorical, literary, and interactional layers of language. Okay, together all 6 create a full picture of how learners interpret hidden meaning. Maybe you are thinking, this is not something new because we all learn this at the university, but this is a way that Purpura operationalized and systematized this view of language and how it works. And maybe this can help you in your classes so that, as Dennis mentioned before, you can create linguistic tasks with a purpose. For example, in this class, we are going to create a conversation at the supermarket with an angry customer, for example. Or you can create different situation based on the national curriculum that targets an scenario, okay? And you can give them a meaning here, okay? The ones that we are going to analyze. Okay, the first one that we have here is the social linguistic. What is this? Is how language reflects social norms within a community, okay? For example, what is it? Okay, choosing words or expressions depending on who you talk to. For example, formal versus informal, polite or direct. It is not the same when you address a coworker than when you address, for example, the principal at the high school, right? So you need to know how to deal with that so that you can survive in society and in the world, okay? And here I'm going to show you this example that this is a teacher and the teacher says, I would appreciate it if you handed in your assignment tomorrow. The politeness softens the request, but the expectation remains clear. Okay, Ines, next, please. Okay, and we are going to read this question. Let me see, okay. The question is, what does the teacher's wording suggest? A, submitting is optional. B, the teacher is not sure about the deadline. C, it is a polite request, but still an expectation. In this case, C is the correct option. And this item or this question pushes the students to recognize that their request is polite, but still an expectation, okay? This helps the students notice how wording carries social meaning. In this case, the way the teacher addresses her students, okay? Next, please. Okay, we have the social linguistic meaning, sorry, social cultural meaning. Okay, in here you can see, okay, how culture influences interpretation. And what is it? Well, understanding references, traditions, humor, or practices that belong to a specific culture. In this case, make yourself at home. We have that in Spanish as well. Okay, this is, for example, when a host says this expression when someone visits home, right? But he really doesn't mean like that you need to act like the owner of the house. Like you see in the picture number 2, that the person gets in the house and goes to bed and everything. No, you don't have to do that because that is not culturally accepted, right? But it means that you can feel comfortable and like at home, right? Okay, so next, please. Okay, in this case, I'm going to present an item. Okay. Okay, and the question says, okay, what does the host really mean with this expression, right? That makes yourself at home. Okay, option A, the guest can behave exactly as if they own the house. B, the guest should feel comfortable and relaxed. And C, the guest should cook and clean like family. Okay, here the correct answer is B. Thank you, Luis, Carlos, Thomas, thank you. Okay. Okay, and in this item asks students to move beyond literal interpretation and connect the phrase to cultural norms and hospitality. Okay? But you love C, yes, I love C when I get people visit my place, sure, for sure. Okay, so this is something that you need to teach students, right? To read those messages, not only because of a test or because you need to cover a curriculum, but because it's something that they need when they are going to be part of a society, in a community, okay? This is something important, for example, if they are going to visit another country in which Spanish is not spoken, so they need to understand this. This is like cultural, knowledge that they need to know how to deal, okay? Inez, the next one, please. Okay, in terms of psychological meaning, I decided to break it down in the 2 linguistic competences. First, I'm going to show you an item that is related to the listening comprehension area, okay? And what is psychological meaning? In this case, for listening is how stress, intonation, or emotion change meaning. And what is it? Okay, the way prosody, intonation, stress pauses, or emotional stance adds hidden message. Okay, in this situation, I'm going to ask my partner, Rudy, to read this phrase. But before, Rudy, I would like to tell you something. When we record audios for the national test, we always get the help from the Peace Corps, and we always tell the native speaker, for example, the the attitude, they need to act out the conversation actually. So we say in this case, we say, okay, you need to act like frustrated because you missed the train. Okay, so you need to add like that meaning conveyance to that situation that is frustrating, right? So Rudy, please, I want you to read this like in an angry tone or sarcastic, you know, saying that you missed the train and that is something bad. Maybe you can, I don't know, do something like that, please.
Sure. Well, that's just perfect.
Thank you, Rudy. Thank you, Rudy. You know, it is very frustrating, right? When one miss the train or the bus or the plane, okay? That's awful. That's terrible. Okay, Ines, can you continue, please? Next. Thank you, Rudy. Okay, so I'm going to show you the item that we would typically include in our test. For example, we have here, well, that's just perfect, right? And what emotion is being implied? Okay, we have three options. A, genuine happiness about missing the train, frustration or annoyance of the situation, and indifference to missing the train, okay? Remember that on purpose, we write the distractors so that that can challenge the examinee to select the correct answer. In this case, maybe you read perfect, that's just perfect, but you are not listening the tone and you say, no, but this is a beautiful situation, missing the train. But in the reality, even though perfect is a positive word, let's say, but in this case is sarcasm, okay? So the correct answer is B, frustration or annoyance of the situation, okay? In these questions, we ask the students to catch the implied frustration, not to take the words at face value, okay? That is the purpose of this item. Okay, maybe you are thinking, but this is so tricky. Yes, it is tricky because we need to challenge the good and the high achievers, the examinees, so that they can demonstrate that they know and that they can identify these kinds of meanings. Ines, can you go to the next one, please? Okay, on the other hand, I brought a psychological meaning sample in reading comprehension, okay? How can we differentiate that? Okay, for example, how the tone, mood, and emotional stance of a text shape interpretation. Readers infer the writer's feelings, for example, irritation, joy, disappointment, sarcasm, from vocabulary choice, punctuation, and style. Something that we really like, and I'm going to show you how to write these kind of questions. For example, we write two emails, one email answering the other one, so that you can see the responses. For example, that I requested something in the email, but the other person denied, or I am complaining about a product that I just purchased, okay, in a very, let's say, angry tone. That is the way we can convey that meaning in the psychological meaning items, okay? And in this case, the example that I brought to you today is about a movie review. Think about a movie that you just watched, okay? I can remember a movie because I haven't gone to the theater lately, but in this review, this person watched a terrible movie and this person wrote, "What a fantastic experience. 2 hours of my life I will never get back." Okay, and as you can read there, you need to infer the frustration in a written text, even if the writer doesn't use the word angry. Okay, as you can see here in this written message, you see the word fantastic, experience, and maybe if we have examinees, for example, that are not B2, C1, that they are like beginners, they are going to say, yes, of course, this is positive. This person really likes the movie. Okay, but that's not the reality. You need to identify those messages. Okay, Ines, can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. Okay, this is the item that we wrote for the test, and it says, what does the reviewer really mean? Okay, we have three options. Okay, A, he truly enjoyed the movie. B, he wasted his time and disliked it. And C, the movie was too short. As I told you before, we did it on purpose, okay? And maybe if you just read and didn't pay attention, maybe you can select one because it's a fantastic experience, okay? But you need to learn how to read beyond the lines so that you can see that the person is frustrated. So here students must infer the negative meaning, not to be misled by the word fantastic, as I was telling you, okay? Next. Okay, in terms of literary meaning, it is how figurative or symbolic language adds a deeper meaning. As you can see here, we have a picture, okay, of a person like, trying to run away from a place, okay? And in here, what is it? Okay, recognizing metaphors, similes, or symbolism in stories or poems, okay? In the text, of course, when we include this kind of stimulus in a test, we need to include a whole context. But because we are doing this presentation, we are going to just give you like an extra, sample sentences so that you can identify it, okay? For example, the city was a jungle full of hidden dangers, okay? Next, please. Okay, and the sample question is, what does jungle mean here? Okay, A, a hidden jungle in the city, B, a dangerous and chaotic place, and C, a tourist attraction in the jungle. Okay, again, we write plausible distractors. What is plausible? That is something that is written that partially answers the question, but it's not 100%. It doesn't answer the question 100%, And here the right option is a dangerous and chaotic place. Okay, that's the meaning of the word jungle in this case. So this question makes students connect metaphor with meaning, not confuse it with literary jungle imagery. And guys, I'm going to tell you something, and I'm going to be honest with you. If you think about these meanings and fake news and everything about social media that is affecting our teenagers and also us as adults, okay? This is very important that you can teach your students so that they can identify and they can develop that critical thinking, right? So that they can analyze the news, okay? And so that they don't feel like biased by the information, okay, or misled. So I think that this is a very important skill to teach these meanings so that we can create analytic students, okay? So this is very important, and this was just a commercial. Okay, next, please. Okay. We have here the rhetorical meaning. And what is that? How writers and speakers persuade and emphasize. Okay, this is a phrase that we always listen because it's positive. Okay, if we are recycled just one bottle a day, imagine the difference it would make for the planet. Okay, so the question here is, what is the author's purpose? Option A, to narrate a story. Option B, to provide instructions. Option C, to persuade the reader. Okay. The author in this case with this expression isn't instructing. He is persuading the audience so that we can protect our planet. Okay. The correct answer here is to persuade, as I was pointing out. And this shows how language motivates an action. This is a rhetorical meaning. Okay, next, please. Okay. In terms of interactional meaning is how meaning is co-constructed in conversation, okay? In this case, Rudy, please, can you help me? In here, of course, you have a whole context about the conversation and the relationship between Carlos and Ana, right? And of course, when we are going to record this type of audios, we ask the native speakers to convey the meaning that Ana really doesn't want anything with Carlos, but she doesn't dare to say no, okay? So in this case, Rudy, can you help me? You are Carlos and I am Ana, please.
Sure. Do you want to join us for dinner?
Okay, Rudy, can you, I don't know, express like a feeling that you really like Anna and you really like her to go to dinner and you are so in love?
Okay.
So that I can
Do you,
reject you.
do you, do you want to join us for dinner?
Maybe later. Okay, as you can see here, and you are not watching a video, but you are listening to the intonation of the speakers in this conversation, Anna really doesn't reject Carlos. She's not saying no explicitly, but she is making herself understood that she doesn't really want to join Carlos for dinner. Okay? In this conversation, what does Anna's hesitation suggest? Okay, A, we have reluctance, B, enthusiasm, or strong rejection. Okay, in this case, the correct option is A, okay? And this kind of task trains the students to pick up on subtle conversational cues, okay? This kind of question and stimulus, audios, and reading comprehension passages are meant to target higher levels, for example, B1, B2, C1, okay? Because this is something that maybe a student that is like a beginner, right, in learning another language, maybe this person couldn't pick up, right, this kind of expression, okay? Next, please. So as I was telling you, everything that you have seen today from the one that, from the section that Dennis was explaining, propositional, functional, and then these implied meanings, everything was used and was meant to operationalize the construct of the test. And the test is meant to measure the listening and the reading skills that a student must have at the end of the educación diversificada. In this case, I'm going to show you how we linked this descriptor with the questions that you have just seen and the meanings. For example, if you take a look at this descriptor, maybe you can pay attention to meanings implied by the context, okay? What you saw today is just a sample, right? Because we need to give a context so that the student can perform better at the test, okay? But they really need to pay attention not only to words when they are listening or reading a passage. They need to understand the context so that they can extract information and demonstrate that they can reach this, the B2. And it says they can scan quickly through long and complex text, locating relevant details to demonstrate ability to understand meanings implied by the context of the text. Okay, as you can see here, well, we have an extract, right, that as I was telling you, but you scan it or you listen very fast, okay, so that you can understand the overall message that the audio or the passage are trying to convey, okay? This is for B2. Next, please. Okay, Remember that the curriculum we have, the exit profile for everybody in Costa Rica is B1, but we have a Programa Bilingües and the exit profile is B2. So in order to give the chance to those great examinees to perform, to excel the exit profile, this test measures the C1 CFR descriptor, okay? But of course, the items there are harder, okay? And the cognitive demand that they need to exhibit here is so much complex, okay? So as you can see here, again, meanings implied. Of course, in C1, we also have literal items, so prepositional and functional. But the way that we can show difficulty is with the vocabulary and grammar. For example, we can use passive voice at C1 and B2. We can use, for example, C1 words. For example, the word house. House, if you use it as a noun, it's an A1 word. But if you use house as a verb, that is a C1 word, okay? So when we choose the words, the vocabulary, we have a purpose in mind. Besides the layers of meaning, we have a purpose in mind. That is that we need to challenge students. And of course, I'm going to show you later, but remember that many of you have participated in the item writing and item judging or item reviewing. You review the items, okay? And also, before we administer the test, we ask sometimes regional advisors and of course national advisors so that they can take a look at that last, let's say, blueprint of the test, okay? Why? Because operationalizing all this, the vocabulary, the curriculum, the meaning-oriented conceptualization and language knowledge, everything makes or composed the way that we operationalize the construct of the test. And remember that since this test is meant to be, let's say, approved by getting an A2, we need to be fair, okay? So I'm going to give you some recommendations, but I want you to keep that in mind, that everything that we do, and there isn't, guys, any perfect evaluation because we need to perform every year, but our concern as office and as team, Dennis and I and my other co-workers like Rudy, we make sure that we make fair tests because those are high stakes tests. And what is that? Well, that the future of a person is defined by a test. Okay, so we need to be fair, and that is why we are providing this information so that you can understand this model and you can implement this in class. And as I was telling you before, not only for the class, but also to train this future generation that they are going to be the future doctors and lawyers and so on, so that they can have a critical mind and they can break down and unpack the messages that they are listening and reading, not only in Spanish, but in English. And I think that this is a skill that as a country, we need to continue working, okay? Because in our hands, we have the future generations, okay? Ines, can you move with the next one? Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna give you some tips so that you can write and create, not only write items, but maybe create tasks for your students or projects, or you can write your own tests, right? Using these tips, okay? For example, remember that implied meanings, they go beyond the literal text. Focus on implied messages. Also, very important, guys, when you choose or select an audio from YouTube, from Spotify, or another source, meaning depends on tone, intention, context, culture, relationship, or rhetorical strategies. This is very important, okay? Also, something important is that you select input that challenge students. Why? Because they need to infer, not just locate information, okay? They need to think outside the box, okay? And also, answers are not directly stated. They require connecting cues with background knowledge. I think that Costa Rica, we are great at, to have these messages that maybe have two different meanings, okay, in Spanish, okay? So that is the purpose of these implied messages, okay? Next, please. Thank you. Okay, another tip that I want to give you, and we are going to share this presentation if you want to take a screenshot here. These are like the fixed questions. I want to tell you something. The difficulty of a linguistic task in this test doesn't rely on the questions. It relies on the stimulus, okay? And we just use these fixed questions, but with the information from the text. Okay, we are going to use this always. Okay, so for example, you have what can we infer about? And maybe talk about the situation in the audio or the text. Why does the speaker or writer say? How does the writer feel about? What does this expression suggest about? Which rhetorical strategy device is used? What can we conclude about the relationship between, for example, in this case, the dialogue that Rudy and I just read? What is the relationship? I think that is a frustrated one, right? Okay. Or what is the speaker's main intention? Okay. These questions, these are fixed questions. As well as in the other, the prepositional and functional, we have fixed questions. For example, in the lower levels, we have like, what is, I don't know, the amount of, I don't know, and we ask for details, okay? Or what is the main message of the email, for example, that is for functional. And for this one is inferring, right? They need to grasp the information from the passage or the audio in order to get the answer. For these implied meanings, okay? So, as I was telling you before, the difficulty of these questions relies on the level of the words, the vocabulary, the grammar, everything plays a huge and important role in defining the stimulus for our learners in the national test. Okay, next. Okay, steps to write the questions. Okay, to write tasks. Okay, step number one, you need to select the layer. Psychological, sociocultural, rhetorical, select it first, okay? Then decide which implied meaning to target. For example, sociolinguistic, sociocultural, okay? You need to select one, okay? Step number two, you need to choose or design the stimulus. Something that I would like to highlight in this area is that we do not include pictures or images in this type of tasks. Why? Because remember the descriptor that I just read? It doesn't say that the student can infer from the image. No. They don't need an image or something else to get the correct meaning or the correct answer. They don't need to do that. If you consider the TOS, the table of specification of this test, as you can see for the pre-A1, it says the student can understand the meaning by using pictures, okay? So when we design items for the pre-A1 level, we need pictures. because the students, they really need that so that they can perform at the test. But at this level, we don't need it. What we do and what we like to do is, for example, that if we say, okay, we have a WhatsApp conversation like the one that Dennis presented, we have a tool that maybe we can share it, Dennis, with the audience. We have a tool in internet that they can create like the layout of a WhatsApp conversation. So for example, this is a post in Instagram. So we have this tool that creates like a fake Instagram post or Facebook. You can create that, but you don't need to include pictures. For example, the one that I included in the jungle and that, it was just for the purpose of this presentation, but you don't need to include that so that the student can rely on an image in order to understand. They need to conduct that process here, okay? And they need to use all the strategies that you taught in class in how to get the correct answer, okay? So for example, when we say design a stimulus, okay, for example, in reading, short email, ad, story excerpt, speech, or for example, Instagram post, Facebook, I think Facebook, the young people don't use Facebook, right? That is just for us, like, you know, in the 40s, 30s, okay? But I think Facebook, they don't use that, but maybe Instagram or TikTok, right? But okay, so that you can also match the information according to the audience, so this your students, okay? Also in listening, we have dialogues, announcements, ads, speech, okay? We like, for example, to include an announcement in an airport. For example, we ask our native speakers to record something like that. I'm going to tell you something. And I think that when you use a tool, of course, everything, the social media has advantages and disadvantages. But something that is very positive is the authentic material that you can get. For example, at YouTube, or for example, in Spotify, you can find authentic material. And maybe, for example, for B2C1, we use authentic material because sometimes it's hard to target that level, okay? It's hard, so it is easier, for example, to get maybe a person announcing news at CNN or something like that, than asking a native speaker to record something like that, because that is not authentic. And one of the main characteristics of this national test is to create a stimulus that are likely for students to encounter in real life, okay? For example, a menu, a post, in this case, in the dialogues, for example, an announcement, or listening to the news, okay? And here is when I strongly advise, guys, that you need to train students so that they can understand and go deeper in those layers, and then they can identify the fake news, for example, okay? Also, something important here is to ensure that text and audio includes explicit cues, for example, tone, irony, cultural references, rhetorical devices, politeness strategies, and so on, okay? It's something that I like to advise when we are in the process of training item writers, is that maybe a person from a faraway area, from, I don't know, in Limon or in another place, they are not really familiar with some characteristics, for example, of downtown or something like that. But you know what? I strongly believe that we can have window passages. What is that? That is a reading passage or a listening that can works as a window for students to see the world, so that they can understand what is going on up there without having the experience to be there, okay? And you need, of course, to include everything in that reading. or in the audio, so that the student don't need to go to, for example, the memories or a reference that they are familiar with to answer. They need to have all the information in this window passage to answer the question, but something new. For example, we can present something related to, I don't know, the Japanese culture that we don't know at all, right? But everything is in the text, so students can see the world through the passage, okay? I don't know if you remember the old bachillerato test and remember the topics like gallo pinto, el cañera azul, okay? So those items, you need to write the questions very carefully because you can ask for prior knowledge. So what are we testing? Prior knowledge or understanding? So we need to be careful. That is why I really like the window passages, so that the students can experience the world, can live the world, but they have everything they need in the passage. Okay, next, please. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. The third step is to write the task. Okay, now, okay, first you have selected the layer, you have selected the stimulus. Now we need to write the question, but how am I going to do that? Okay, we need to focus in this case on inference, not literal detail, okay? We use question stems that push the students to interpret the hidden layers of meaning, okay? In this case, remember, we need to get the best of our students and we need to make them think. I don't know if you have seen, well, of course, you need to deal with them every day, but students right now, they just want information like fast, and they want short messages, stories at Instagram, and that's it. But they don't really want to read or listen, right, in order to get information. And I don't know if it has happened to you, but they don't understand simple instructions. Why? Because they don't have the ability to focus, right? And to pay attention to the details so that they can inference, okay? So we need to work this not only in English, but also in Spanish, okay? Because as I told you before, we have our future generation in our hands. So this is not just only for a test, but for life. Okay, so we need to use that question, like the ones that I just shown you, and many more. Maybe you can come up with some different question formats so that you can ask learners and examinees way much better than the ones that we presented. And if you do, please share it with us because we need new ideas every day, okay? Okay, that's step 3. Step 4, you need to write the distractors, okay? In this case, and for this test, we have 3 options. 1 key is the correct answer, and 2 distractors, okay? For the key, we have a correct inference, okay? And it matches the implied meaning. And also we have 2 distractors based on literal misinterpretation or plausible but incorrect inference. Okay, plausibility is the way that we can write distractors. For example, like the one that says perfect, right? And maybe students are going to think that that is positive. We need to write a question that maybe answers the question, but maybe we're trying to get another meaning that they can think more, okay? Okay, next, please. And finally, guys, I don't know the way you work at your high school, but I think that it's very important, like to work in groups and together, so that you can validate or review the items that you are writing, okay? So validate the task. In this case, among all the things that you can check, I'm gonna give you 2 aspects, 2 very important aspects that you can check. Okay, the first one is, can the item be answered without inference? If yes, too literal, okay? Or check, is the implied meaning anchored in the text audio? Avoid asking about personal opinion. Okay, and I think that writing these type of items needs a lot of expertise. And I'm going to tell you something. I am not against artificial intelligence, but I think that if you are going to program that tool, first you need to excel or master the art of writing these items so that you can decide whether or not the AI give you a question that really targets this knowledge, okay? So first try by yourself to write these questions, and then you can maybe write some prompts so that the artificial intelligence can help you writing these items, okay? Well, this is everything in terms of the implied meanings. I hope that you have liked this section, and thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Dennis and Laura, for explaining and actually exemplifying the 6 different layers of meaning. And probably the audience has already noticed that, as could have been seen, the aim of both Dennis and Laura was to socialize the factual foundations and the rationale behind the MOCLK, which basically relates to everyday tasks that we do in life. At this point, should there be any questions from the audience, where the presenters will be more than happy to answer those and clarify any doubts that you may have. But in the meantime, I would like to remind you about the form document and the evaluation link that has been posted since the beginning in the chat of this meeting. Just a reminder, this event was being recorded, and it will be made available on the IDP YouTube channel in due course. And finally, last but not least important, thanks to the resources department at the IDP staff and the IDP staff for helping us throughout this meeting. Thank you very much, everybody. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask your questions. You can raise your hand.
Guys, before we go with the questions, Laura, Rudy, and I, sorry. Laura, Rudy, and I mean, we really want to thank the 27 regional English advisors. I mean, guys, thank you so much. You're always willing to help us. But we know very well that behind you, there's also a great group of teachers who are always willing to support you and in some way, so you always help us. Guys, thank you so much. Okay. I'm really sorry, but we are almost over. So we just have 12 minutes for questions. So we're gonna open this space for you to ask questions or to say, well, I don't know, to comment. You just tell us. Just 10 minutitos, please.
Ask away, please. Ask away.
Randall, do you want to say something? Do you want to share something?
Feel free to post your question in the chat, or you can open your camera and microphone and we can hear it from you.
Yep, exactly. Not really.
Randall, we really want to hear your voice. Come on. Don't be shy.
Go ahead. No questions? Okay.
Maybe, Rudy, can you read some of the questions then?
Let me go back in the chat. What I see is greetings, basically. But questions per se, I don't see any. I can see just a comment about science, the national test, but this is for another subject, which is science, not specifically for English. I don't see any, really. Oh, there's somebody. There's somebody, and this person who's Joanna Fonseca. She says that with this info will be requested to create any bank or resource.
What do you mean, Joanna?
I'm not really sure, Joanna. Please, could you please elaborate a little bit more so we can actually target your question?
Because I'm going to tell you something. For us, this is mandatory to follow this model so that we can write fair questions for students. For us and for you, we want you to have, because you know that knowledge is power, we want you to have this knowledge so that you can implement this in class. And I think that someone asked for the test administered last year. We cannot publish that because that those items belong to a bank of items or a pool of items. But what we do have is a mock test, and it is totally free and available at our website that we are going to show you our contact so that you can go to our website and you can access to that test. And also I see that our friend Randall Centeno wrote, in lower bands such as A1 and A2, should teachers include questions that require literal answers? Yes, actually, Randall, if you take a look at the TOS, the table of specification, and if you read the descriptors, not only for listening, but for reading, you can see that the descriptor requests these type of questions. Of course, we cannot include implied meanings here because the students, they are going to fail if we include that.
Laura, Joanna just expanded her question. And what she means is, she says, I mean, we are supposed to incorporate this in class, but are we invited to create sample tests to share? So are we supposed to incorporate these in class?
Okay, the answer is that you need to consider the national curriculum. And remember that part of the national test is the curriculum, the scenarios, and the way they develop knowledge from the A1 level through the B1 or B2. So you need to target the scenarios. They give you sample situation so that you can develop that in your class. And I think that even though it doesn't say implied meanings or literal meanings, but this is something that is embedded within the curriculum. And this is something important that you need to work because, as I was telling you before, we need to teach our students to go deep in those layers so that they can, for example, identify fake news and so on, right? This is a skill for life. And of course, it is included in the curriculum. And if you would like to create sample items for your students so that they can get ready for the test, you can implement this.
Somebody else, thank you. Somebody else is asking, what is the level for passing the English test this year?
Okay, based on
the band, I think that's what she means.
Okay, yes. Okay, based on el transitorio 4, that is a reglamento de evaluación de los aprendizajes, the A2 level is the minimum level students need to achieve so that they can get the requirement in order to get the bachillerato degree.
Okay, somebody else is asking, will this presentation be made available for the audience? If so, how?
This question is for Inés and Jose that are here.
Okay.
Maybe in Spanish, really?
Yeah, by the way, the recording will also be made available for you on the YouTube channel, okay? Inés, si la presentación va a estar disponible para la audiencia.
Eso depende de ustedes. Tendríamos que descargarla en PDF
Ok.
y ya después ahí les indicaría el procedimiento para que todas las personas que entraron, ustedes harían un correo de parte del departamento que les haría llegar a las personas que registraron asistencia, les haría llegar lo que corresponde a la PPT de ustedes que usaron.
Okay.
Gracias, Inés.
Let me see. No, I don't see. Okay, there's somebody asking for the link for attendance. Give me a sec. The link is already in the chat. I just posted it. You can see it there. Could I say that again? Yeah, so what Inés said, Francisco, so what Inés said is she will make the presentation available for the audience through an eventual email that will be sent to all the attendees. Yes, we will share the PPT, that's for sure. Sure, that's the idea, Marilyn, that teachers, I mean, the audience can implement this framework and these theoretical foundations in the classroom, and I think students will benefit a lot from this. The video will also be made available, Nuria, and you should look for this video on the YouTube channel for the IDP, okay? So it will be hosted there. So both the video and the PPT will be shared with you in due course. Somebody else? Okay, Randall is asking, when will the results of the 2025 exam be published? Do you know that? When will the results be published in relation to the exam this year?
That's a question that must be addressed to the authorities at the GEC, because we don't have the answer.
Well, Kenya has a question. I will read this question, but I could answer it, but since you presented, I would prefer.
Oh, go ahead, Rudy, go ahead.
Yes, okay.
Sorry. It's
Go,
okay.
go, go.
This,
Yeah,
okay,
go,
this Henry is asking, one, of course, should be the correct one. Talking about the distractors, I think, and the key answer. And, okay, one of course should be the correct one. The other remaining two should be vague or could be tricky. Well, Henry, this is the rationale that we use when we write tests and the distractors and the key. Obviously, there is one key, and it should be, I mean, there's no way that it could be, let's say, hesitant option. There must not be any questions or any doubts that option one or option A is the key. The other two can be plausible answers, but there could be one minor aspect that would make that distractor not the key. So, in other words, the idea is not that students will have very obvious distractors and one key, because in that sense, we would not be measuring reading comprehension. And especially if we speak about higher levels of comprehension, like inference, and also in the literal level. Would you like to elaborate a little bit more, Denise or Laura?
I think that you just did a great job.
Okay.
And the distractors are possible misconceptions about the audio or the reading passage. Okay. Yes, they are tricky and they are meant to distract, the examinees. That's the reality. And that is why it is so hard, right, guys, to write distractors. Because, for example, an item that we always say, right, is Dennis. Where does Dennis live? Option A, Cartago. Option B, pizza. Option C,
Yesterday.
Right? So we need to write and create distractors that challenge the learners, okay? Because those, the ones that I just mentioned, they are so easy to dismiss, and we need to avoid that, okay? Because we want learners to really demonstrate what they know.
The other
That's
aspect
it.
that you should consider when writing items is that by no means the mistake should reflect grammatical mistakes, okay? So for instance, that maybe the question is in past tense and then the distractors will be in the present or the future or the present perfect or any other verbal tense. So it should be merely about reading comprehension, not any other aspect. Talking about the different layers that both Dennis and Laura talked about. You're more than welcome, Virginia. We're more than glad that we could have the chance to get together with you, at least virtually, but we're glad that this could be of great help for you and your teaching practice. Any more questions? I don't see any. So please don't forget to complete the attendance form and the evaluation. That's very important for the presenters. No, I don't see any.
Okay.
Just people saying thank you and goodbye. So if there are no more questions, somebody is asking. Okay, wait a minute. Gerson Carrillo from Santa Cruz. Gerson, I'm sorry. Gerson, you can use the microphone if you feel comfortable with it. Gerson?
Can you listen to me?
Sure, yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Yes, I just want to let you know that I feel ready to start working on those items. Everything is very coherent. Thank you so much. And I appreciate what you are doing. Thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks, you too. Finally, Vianney says, I appreciate you share activities like this. They are of great help for our job. Don't forget to serve the web and look for the mock test that is available for you and your students. I also posted that link, but I will post it again. So you can have a better understanding and a better panorama of the job that both Laura and Dennis are doing for you and your students as well. So if there are no more questions, then this is a wrap. Then you're more than welcome. Nope, no more questions. For those remaining, thank you very much. Have a nice weekend. Enjoy, relax. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend. We all deserve it, right? See you.
Bye.